The age-old question for so many guitar players is how can I get better at improvising and soloing so that I can ultimately have more fun jamming with friends and pretty much a more meaningful relationship with my instrument, because I can now take the ideas and the skills that I have and apply them in a free-flowing manner. So how the heck can I do that? So we've got another installment of how to jam, and in this lesson we're going to be taking a look at my favorite and what's ultimately the most basic pentatonic scale shape. And in my mind, this is the Stevie Ray Vaughan scale shape, because he really was a master of this shape. He milked it for everything it's got going on. So we're going to take a look at that shape and how can you layer it on top of chords that wouldn't necessarily be considered bluesy, but how can you layer it on top to get this bluesy sound. And the chord progression we're going to be using is very simple, it's very basic, so if you have an understanding of bar chords, you should be able to nail those. But if you don't want to mess around with the loop that we're creating, you can just fast forward to the soloing techniques, and you can absorb those and use them on your own. Either way, it's going to be really valuable stuff, so let's get going. I'll start by reminding you all that these How to Jam lessons are always going to be my real-time thoughts on approaching and creating your own unique guitar solo. So if these are skills that you'd like to acquire, subscribe to the channel by clicking the button underneath the title so you can stay up on each day's easy guitar practice. And remember, all of these practice sessions are designed to get you better at guitar as quickly and efficiently as possible. All right, jumping into the chords, let's check out the progression that we'll be utilizing today. If you didn't get a chance to screenshot the tabs, I'd recommend going back to do that now so you can have easy access to them. And I'd also recommend doing that in just a moment, because now I'm going to show you the simple scale shape we'll also be utilizing in today's jam session. All right, we've got all the tools and pieces that we need inside of this context, so let's go ahead and start the loop and figure out just how to inject these bluesy elements into our guitar solos on top of these really pretty chords. So here's the progression, and I want to jump right into these bluesy elements. So what I'm going to do for those of you who are interested in some of these How to Jam concepts, I'm going to link one of our other How to Jam lessons that has to do with the 12-bar blues, because that feels relevant based on this situation. And go ahead and check that out. That's going to be in one of these corners. Check that out if you're interested, because we do a bit more of a deep dive in that lesson to the approach in general. But right here, I want to jump right in and start messing with these bluesy elements. So for me, those elements are going to come from mostly the D, the G, and the B strings. Now, the simplest way to inject a bluesy sound is with a hammer-on or a pull-off into a vibrato. So if those are all concepts that are a little newer to you, this is a very low-stakes environment to work on those skills. So let's just go through the pull or the hammer-ons. I'll start with the hammer-ons, and you'll see what I mean. I want them to be in sync with the rhythm, so they can be as slow as I want them to be. But here we go. I'm going to hammer on from the 9 to the 11, right, the 9th fret to the 11th fret on the D string. Here we go. You can have as much fun with that vibrato as you want. Make that thing wild. Right? Again, if you're practicing, this is low stakes, right? Maybe that's a skill you haven't quite acquired yet. Take your time. Mess around. Play around with that. Let's try it on the G string. Again, 9 to 11. Let's go restart it. Those already sound good and bluesy. I would try that also on the B string from 9 to 12. So again, those three strings in my mind are the core elements behind the bluesy sound. But try them on the other strings as well. It's up to you to just work through this, get comfortable, get creative on your own. The next thing would be a pull-off. So I'm just going to go right to the G string. As I'm forming thoughts already, again, this is all free-flowing, but as I'm forming the thoughts, the G string should really be that home base in my mind if we're creating a bluesy feel over this progression. So let's try a pull-off from 11 to 9 on the G string. Here we go. vibrato, you can go, nuts with this. Bringing that Jimi Hendrix, hitting other strings aspect. You don't have to do that, but if you're practicing, it's important to create an environment of like structured play, so to speak. Anyways, moving on, we got the hammer-ons, we got the pull-offs, work the vibrato. That's such an important way to add a bluesy element. Now the next thing, and really the final thing, are bends. Half step or full step bends. So bending the 11 on the G string, or bending the 12 on the B string, or bending 12 on the E string. Excuse me. Something like that. Again, this is all off the cuff, and I'm just really wanting to explain the concepts more than anything. But those bends on 11 on the G, 12 on the B, 12 on the E, those are going to add some interesting bluesy elements. And again, go slowly. So just real time, this is probably how I would work through it, just so that I don't have any more hiccups. Now we won't have hiccups. That I'm working out some bluesy elements. It's not fully formed yet, and that's the nice thing of actually staying within one shape. I want to be utilizing slides. This, that's a little clunky for me. I usually want to go. That's how I would get to that note. Same note, but that's how I would usually get to it. Excuse me. Way off on some of my playing, a lot of hiccups. But you can see I might, go to some comfortable shapes that I already utilize too much if I am not keeping myself to the confines of this one shape we've gone through. So I think that adds an interesting wrinkle. So if you're a beginner, it says, hey, don't go too wild with it. But if you're an intermediate or more advanced player, it's saying, hey, get creative inside of this box. So it works for everyone. So my apologies on the less than awesome playing, but I hope that concept makes sense. And remember, we come out with these every week. We've got lots of lessons and practice exercises that you can implement in scenarios just like this. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more tips, tricks, exercises, etc., etc. And we'll see you next time for more easy guitar practice.